Hello everybody and welcome back to Access Blockbusters Pod. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the short absence from the channel, about 10 days or so. I was away. I had a great time, just taking a little bit of rest, relaxation, all that good stuff, but we are back today, officially back from the Access Blockbusters Pod, and ready to talk about all sorts of things that are going on in movies and television and pop culture and all that sort of stuff, blockbuster media, you name it, it'll be on this channel. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Access Blockbusters Pod, wherever you are listening from, whether it be on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, on the YouTube channel itself as the video. Thank you so much for listening, and make sure, by the way, while we're at it, make sure to subscribe if you're watching on the YouTube channel, or even if you're not, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Access Blockbusters. We'd really appreciate it. Give the video a like, comment below with your question of the week for next week's podcast, and there will be a lot of questions about D23, I'm sure, as we get closer to that, so make sure to do that. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you're listening on Spotify, make sure to leave a review and a rating, hopefully a good one, on those platforms as well. That would really help me out. Sorry, just hit the mic, if you could hear that. Sorry about that. And yeah, that's about it for the basic self-promo housekeeping. What else is there for housekeeping before we move on to question of the week? So, just some basic updates is that, look forward to D23. The plan right now, barring any sudden changes, is that I will be doing coverage of D23 with breaking news videos and all that sort of stuff, just like I did with Comic-Con, and that obviously went really well. It was a little stressful for me, but we got all the videos out on time and all that sort of stuff, so thank you guys so much for tuning in during Comic-Con, and obviously we will be back at D23 to break down all of the breaking news and coverage that comes out from that, so can't wait to see what goes on there. And then as far as other updates go, we'll talk a little bit later, maybe in a couple weeks in September, as September winds down, and we'll kind of give some updates as to what's going on with the channel in the fall and in the spring, maybe the next year or so. We'll discuss all that sort of stuff maybe in a couple weeks, but just wanted to get that on your minds, to look out for that on the horizon as September continues to go on. Okay, so that is that for housekeeping. Hope you guys have been doing well, and we are going to jump in right into the content for the podcast for this week. So without further ado, let's get into question of the week. So let me pull it up right here. So question of the week is basically the format that I open every single podcast up with right now these days, where I take a question from you guys, from the audience, and I look through the questions and pick one to answer for the podcast episode, just to sort of get the juices flowing and kind of really talk about something that I think is relevant, that comes from you guys, something that you guys want me to talk about. And it really helps to get that interactivity from the audience that I really appreciate. So thank you guys so much for submitting questions. If you're curious as to how to submit questions, I am posting on the community page. It's on my YouTube channel main page. If you go to the tab that says community, you will see around every Sunday or Saturday a community post that's asking for questions for the following Monday's podcast. You can submit your questions there, as many as you'd like, and I will go through and pick the best one, or the one that I think is the most relevant, and we will go from there. You can also post a question of the week in the comment section of the YouTube video for today's podcast if you would like, and I will be checking those as well. I respond to every single comment that I can, and yeah. It's been the same few people every time so far. So again, if you're looking to get a comment and a question out onto the YouTube channel, onto the podcast, and I will give you guys a shout out if you do, continue to put in questions. I'd love to hear some fresh voices from the subscribers. I know you guys are out there, and I really appreciate all you guys. So thank you so much. And today's question comes from, and again, I'm going to butcher your name. I really apologize. Rion Kotecha, I believe. Again, I really apologize. And the question is simple, but I think it's an important one. Speaking of D23, what do you expect at D23? That's the question. Thank you so much, Rion. And yeah, let's get into what I expect from D23. So we're going to be talking primarily Star Wars and Marvel today. I know that they're going to be doing other stuff with Disney Animation and maybe with Pixar as well. But I just wanted to focus in on Star Wars and Marvel because that's really what this channel is about. Star Wars, Marvel, and DC, although I have done some Pixar content as well, and I look forward to doing more in the future. But for now, Star Wars and Marvel. Let's talk about what I am expecting from both of those major divisions of Disney at D23. So what we're going to do is I have broken it down into high probability, medium probability, and low probability for each one of those. the high probability, there are, I'm listing a bunch of things that I think are pretty much a given at this point. Medium is one or two guesses maybe as to things that I'm pretty sure would happen, but not entirely sure. And low, I've just given a wild guess. Not a wild guess, pretty actually informed guess, I think, but something that I don't think will happen. But if it did, I wouldn't be entirely shocked as well. So let's start out with Star Wars first, and let's go from high, medium to low, and talk about what I think is going to be presented at D23 for Star Wars. So the high probability stuff, I think Mandalorian Season 3 is pretty much a given. In fact, I think that it would be pretty incredible if we didn't get a trailer released to the public. I think that the trailer was dropped at Comic-Con almost 2 months ago at this point. And not Comic-Con, excuse me. It was a Star Wars Celebration, which is over 2 months ago. So I think it's about time that we get another trailer, or maybe even the same trailer shown at D23, but this time I think it will be released to the public. So that's one thing I think is pretty sure. Bad Batch Season 2 is not necessarily a high probability thing in that I think it's guaranteed to be talked about, because at that point it'll be like a week away. I think it'll get a mention though, just saying, hey, in a couple weeks we have our Bad Batch Season 2 premiere. Maybe they'll show a clip montage or something, or a clip from the show. I don't know. Bad Batch was not a show that I was very high on, but again, I think that they're going to market it. I think Andor, in that same vein, it'll just be a quick, hey, Andor is coming out in a couple weeks, make sure to tune in to the 3-episode premiere, that kind of thing. So those two are kind of bundled together. I think we will get an Ahsoka trailer, or at least the attendants at D23 will get an Ahsoka trailer. I think that there will be some more casting confirmation. I think that for sure you're gonna find out who Thrawn is, who if Ezra Bridger is in the show, which I'm sure he is, I'm sure you'll find out who that is as well, who's playing him. I'm not sure if the trailer will get released to the public, because I know that there was a trailer at Star Wars Celebration, and I don't believe it was released to the public. I don't think so. And yeah, I think that will be another thing. And finally, rounding out the high probability stuff at D23, I think that we are going to finally get some Acolyte news. As that show, Amandla Sandberg, I believe is her name, is the lead in the Acolyte, and I'm really excited because if you guys didn't see the last Access Blockbusters pod that I did, I talked about my most anticipated shows and movies from, or mostly shows, shows from Star Wars upcoming, and the Acolyte is pretty high up there. I'm really interested to see what they do with that show, and I think we're gonna get some news, maybe a premise of the show, and maybe some cast members as well. I'm really excited about that. I think it's pretty likely at this point, seeing as they're about to head into production sometime soon, I think. So those are the high probability things. I think that these are pretty much given. Maybe not. I could be very wrong, but I'm fairly confident in saying that these things will happen. So you got those 4 or 5 things coming up that I think are pretty much guaranteed. Now, a medium probability guess that I would say is Star Wars movie news. I think that we will get an update. I'm not going to guarantee that it's a significant update, but I think that an update is somewhat likely. Whether or not it's Taika Waititi getting up on stage and saying, here's the title of my movie, it's coming out in 3 years. Maybe. Or if it's Kevin Feige coming out on stage, he will be there, obviously, and saying, hey, I'm making a Star Wars movie too. It's called, I don't know, Attack of the Ewoks or something. Okay, sure. Or it's Patty Jenkins coming out again and saying, hey, Rogue Squadron's still happening, don't worry. But I think we will get some Star Wars news, movie news, but the way that Star Wars has been operating with its movies lately, I just can't be sure. It's in a very nebulous zone that like, what's the next movie? It was going to be Rogue Squadron, but then now it's Taika's movie, but Taika hasn't even started writing the movie, or he has started writing the movie, but it's not finished yet. And there's the Rian Johnson trilogy that apparently isn't dead. So there are a lot of things that are up in the air. But again, I think that we will get something. And that's just, that's my really vague, non-committal guess. But I think we will get something about the movies for sure. And then finally, my wild shot in the dark, my low probability guess as to what we're gonna get. Maybe not only will we get a movie, but I think we're gonna get a movie executive produced by Dave Filoni and directed by Jon Favreau. Whether or not this is the Mandalorian universe kind of tie-in together film like the Avengers film, because they've been hinting at and talking about where they have Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and they had Rangers of the New Republic, but now it's been scrapped, and now Book of Boba Fett and whatever else is going on there. And Skeleton Crew, obviously. I think that we're going to get an announcement, maybe, that Jon Favreau will be directing a movie, that Dave Filoni will be executive producing, that will be within the Mandalorian universe, and wrapping up that big saga that they've got going for them. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm hoping. I'm really hoping. So I think Star Wars will be a lot of things that we expected, but are excited for, like Ahsoka, Acolyte, and things like that, and maybe a couple surprises here and there. But I don't think we should be too surprised by anything that Star Wars announces this Saturday. But I could be wrong. Now, in terms of Marvel, again, I don't know. I think there will be some big surprises, but I also think that there will be a lot of things that we already know is coming. So again, I'm going to go high, medium, and low, and talk about things that I think we should be expecting from Marvel at D23. So high probability, I think this is pretty obvious, filling in phases 5 and 6. I think that it was a really smart move of Kevin Feige to split their big multiverse saga announcement in half. And half of it goes at Comic-Con, where they announce Phase 5 and finish out Phase 4 and start to tease Phase 6. And then obviously you at D23, you fill in Phase 5 and 6. I think that's really what's going to be going on here. And I think within these announcements of these projects, you're going to get individual announcements here and there. But again, I could be wrong. So, talking about high probability things, let's talk about things that I think are pretty much guaranteed. And then maybe a couple, guesses here and there. But I think Armor Wars is all but guaranteed to be announced as the first series of Phase 6. I think Wonder Man has been heavily rumored at this point that it's going to be announced. I think that the Okoye Wakanda series, I'm pretty sure that that's going to be a thing at D23. Deadpool 3, I think Ryan Reynolds is going to be there. I'm very confident in that. Could be wrong though, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be there. These other two projects I have listed here, Shang-Chi 2 has been heavily rumored for a while. But with how busy Destin Daniel Cretton is going to be with producing Wonder Man, and then there was going to be a 10 Rings series at some point. Maybe that'll be announced instead of the Shang-Chi 2, which I'm sure is going to happen, by the way, Shang-Chi 2. We'll see. Shang-Chi 2 / 10 Rings series / something is up for debate, but I think maybe something will be there. And I also think, this is a shot in the dark, but I think a Doctor Strange 3 will be announced as well for 2025, right before Avengers Kang Dynasty, because I think Doctor Strange is just too important of a character and is going to be a linchpin heading into the MCU Phase 6. So I think that those projects are ones that I'm going to be counting on pretty highly for the foreseeable future. So those are the pretty high probability things. Now, for medium probability things, I have a couple things that I think, we're going to get announcements for eventually. Whether or not it's at D23, I don't know, but I think that the Fantastic Four cast and director, I think that rumor, I think it's pretty much likely at that point. We have to remember, though, by the time that D23 comes around, Fantastic Four movie will be 2 years away, which is kind of crazy. So even like having a director, which is rumored to be Matt Shackham, the WandaVision director at this point, like that's an incredible thing already. It's like 2 years away. Announcing it to the public, but who knows, maybe. And the cast themselves, barring the fact that they might appear in maybe Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania or other projects moving forward, it's still very early in the process, but still, I think that there's a good chance we get our cast and director. And on top of that, I just don't think it's John Krasinski. I don't know that. I just think at this point they want to move into a fresh direction, and I'm fine with that, honestly. I think that I trust Marvel's casting enough that I think it'll be fine at this point. I also think that we are going to get a Secret Wars director. I think that they'll officially confirm Destin Daniel Cretton as the director of Kang Dynasty, and then I think they will bring out another director. I hope it's John Watts, but whoever it's going to be for Secret Wars, we will see about that. Those are the sort of medium probability guesses that I have at this point. Now, the low probability guess that I have is something that I think would be a high or a medium probability thing if it weren't for one big issue that's going on right now, and that is the universal rights to the Hulk. And specifically, I am going to take a shot in the dark and say that a Hulk project, a World War Hulk, will be announced, and that they're going to announce that Universal has made a deal to share the rights or to just distribute a movie or to do something. The reason I say this is low probability is because Universal has been notorious in the past for not wanting to share the character with Marvel, and so I don't know if something's going to change at this point, but we can hope. And I think that at this point, again, without the whole Universal without the rights thing going on with them, that Universal owning the rights to the whole character and things like that. I would put it much higher as a probability, but right now I just don't know how Universal is gonna blink and really give back the character. I don't know. But again, anything is possible. They seem to be setting up some interesting things with Hulk and She-Hulk, and I don't know. But I'd be excited. I'd be excited for all these things that I've put on my list thus far. I don't think there's anything here that I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm expecting this, but I'm really not that excited for it. So again, just fingers crossed that we're gonna get something. We're gonna get some really interesting announcements, and I'm pretty excited about all of that coming out this Saturday. So let me know in the comments of the YouTube video or in the community tab some of your thoughts as to what you're expecting at D23 as well. These are my expectations, but again, I'm just open to hearing whatever will be going on from there. All right, so before we move into a review that I have, as well as a theory / ranking that I think is very fun and exciting, there is some news that I wanted to talk about that nobody else seems to be talking about, but I wanted to talk about it because I think it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting, actually, this piece of news. So Entertainment Weekly did an interview with Tim Roth, who plays the Abomination, Emil Blonsky, a few days ago, actually, September 1st. And there are some bombs that were dropped in this article that I don't think anybody has been talking about, which I think is bizarre, because there are some really interesting revelations for She-Hulk that I think have been revealed by Tim Roth, quite frankly. Maybe not. But I wanted to go through this article very quickly because I think it's really interesting. I wanted to bring it to your guys' attention. So it's an article done by Entertainment Weekly with Tim Roth, and you can look it up. It's just Tim Roth, Entertainment Weekly, She-Hulk, and you'll find it. And basically, he talks about a lot of different things. He talks about basically the reason he came back to do Abomination after the Incredible Hulk. Basically, the reason he did Abomination in the first place was to, make his kids happy and things like that. And then he talks about the process, basically, of the motion capture or whatever it was, like how to play in this sandbox of She-Hulk, and how he watched Ruffalo and Maslany kind of do their own scenes first, and then kind of get the confidence to do his scenes. But it's really at the end of this article, and I'm scrolling down here, that he talks about what is he, a good guy, is he a bad guy? We don't know. I think that's pretty obvious. Like, it's ambiguous for now. I'm sure we'll find out Thunderbolts at the end of this series, but he then talks about this really interesting thing where he had a scene with Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. Now, I'm going to say that, okay, I'm going to read the quote, and then we're going to talk about what this means. Because, first of all, just right up front, I was thinking about the first 3 episodes of She-Hulk and the Abomination character, and I don't see any place where the Abomination and the Hulk could have interacted, and that scene just got cut. So I'm going to read this quote, and we're going to talk about what it means, because I think it's really interesting. So on, just quoting from the Entertainment Weekly article, quote, "And while Roth isn't sure if this made the final cut of episodes, he does tease that during filming he got to acknowledge the fact that the last time he played Emil Blonsky was with Norton, and now Bruce Banner looks entirely different as Ruffalo." This is the quote from Blonsky. "It was great. I don't know if it's in there in the episode, but there is a slight bit of confusion when I see him. We riffed on that a lot when we were shooting, but I don't know if any of that made it in. You really put on weight. That kind of stuff. It was very funny. But listen, I got to work with 2 great actors. That's the bottom line. Ed's fantastic, and Mark Ruffalo, I've always wanted to work with Mark Ruffalo, and I got to do it. That's pretty much a bonus. I'll take that." So here you have Tim Roth basically saying, I got to work with Mark Ruffalo, and we got to riff on the fact that his Bruce Banner looks different. Now, it could be him. So first of all, the first thing I want to question here is it Bruce Banner that he's talking about? And this is just me getting really deep into the weeds here of this quote, because we're going to find out in a couple weeks. So it doesn't matter. But I want to look at this article and maybe think about, like, what does this mean? What does this actually mean for the show She-Hulk? So is it Bruce Banner that he's referring to? It's possible And I think that's really interesting because last time we saw him, he's transformed back into the Smart Hulk, but he also has that inhibitor thing that I'm sure he could put back on and turn back into Bruce Banner. So maybe that's not a big deal. The question, I think, becomes why did Hulk come back from space and why is he Bruce Banner again? But it seems pretty clear that Roth is talking about Bruce. It could also just be he met Hulk and he's saying, "Oh, you put on some weight as the Smart Hulk instead of the Edward Norton Hulk." But again, I mean, riffing on the fact that Ruffalo's Hulk looks different than Norton's Hulk, you can't really tell that it's Ed Norton as the Hulk in his movie. It's more of just a CGI thing, separate entity. Whereas Ruffalo's Hulk, Smart Hulk, looks like Ruffalo, so I don't know how you play on that. So that's the one thing is, I mean, it seems confirmed that now that Bruce Banner is coming back to Earth and coming back to the series at some point, maybe in episode 9 or episode 8, and is in Bruce Banner form. That's really interesting. And on top of that, what this seems to indicate, unless this is a cut scene from the first 3 episodes, which I just don't understand where it would have gone, is that he's going to interact with the Abomination again. I don't know how. I don't know in what context. But I think that it's really interesting that this is... because I was one of those people that said, after episode 1, oh, we're going to see Bruce Banner and Hulk again. I mean, I don't think he's done after that one episode. But after episode 2, spoilers for She-Hulk, where he flies off into space, I'm like, oh, then that's it, right? Like, that's the setup for whatever next project he's going to be in. Like, they like to do an Age of Ultron or Civil War, or not Civil War, Ragnarok or whatever. They like to set up the next thing that he's in. And they like to just, leave it at that. And I thought, okay, this is Jen Walters' show. That's it. But then we get this quote from Tim Roth, who plays Emil Blonsky, that seems to indicate that not only does Hulk come back to Earth, but he's also Bruce Banner, and he interacts with the Abomination, or at least Emil Blonsky. That's fascinating. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was really interesting. And again, something just to keep an eye out for, because who knows? Maybe this was him just playing around. Maybe this wasn't, in fact, a cut scene. But I think it's very interesting that he talked about that with Entertainment Weekly. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about that, because I'd be very curious to hear what people think if he's coming back in the show. I posted on Monday's question of the day as sort of a precursor to this topic being on the podcast. So you can comment, you can go vote in that poll. There's a poll up on the community page if you'd like to vote. And yeah, I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Comment down below in that post as well. And we will have a fun conversation about that. All right, let's get into transitioning away from She-Hulk. Let's get into a review. Let's get into the review of the week. And this past week, aside from She-Hulk, which I did a separate video on episodes 1 through 3, I also watched The Rings of Power, episodes 1 through 2. Now, for those people who are asking, why aren't you reviewing House of the Dragon? Very simple reason. I haven't seen Game of Thrones yet, and I want to see Game of Thrones first, and then I want to see House of the Dragon afterwards. So I will be very late to the party on those 2 shows. But I did see The Rings of Power because I am a big Lord of the Rings fan. I'm a fan, I know, crazy, of The Hobbit. I made a video about that a while ago, where I talked about how I could how to better fix the Hobbit trilogy. But I mean, I did clarify and qualify in that video, and I stand by this, that I do enjoy those 3 films. I think the second one the most, and then the first one, and then the third one is a little lackluster for sure. But I do enjoy those films very much. I do. Not ashamed of it. I've read all the books. I'm not a diehard Tolkien fan, to have read the Silmarillion all the way through and things like that. But I do really enjoy this franchise, and I love these characters and this world, Middle-earth. Now, before I get into my thoughts, and these will be spoiler thoughts because the episodes have been out for a while now, I wanted to address the elephant in the room of this sort of toxic discourse that has been going on surrounding the Rings of Power. And I want to just reiterate, I'm not going to go into detail. You can go online and look up what's going on and things like that. There have been, as it seems to have been the case with every single show that has any sort of diversity of race or gender or ethnicity, She-Hulk being a recent show, as well, that there have been people coming up and being very toxic on the internet, and things like Obi-Wan with Reva, Moses Ingram, just awful things being said. And I again want to reiterate that this channel and myself do not stand for those kinds of comments and behavior that are attacking people and content because unfairly and inappropriately because of race, gender, ethnicity, things like that. It's just not something I want to talk about on this channel, frankly, very much. But it's very hurtful to see that kind of stuff, and it's really hurtful to see that kind of discourse surrounding a property that I really enjoy. Like a world that I really enjoy and really love, and not just Rings of Power, but also Star Wars with Obi-Wan, and She-Hulk with Marvel and things like that. And again, it's something where the conversation has now turned from the actual Rings of Power episodes and more now towards toxic fandom again. And it's happening in every single piece of fandom, I feel like, these days. And it's just very upsetting to me. But again, this channel and myself, this is not a place at all for that kind of behavior. And I am very sad and disappointed to see that kind of stuff happen again. I just wanted to enjoy the Rings of Power for what they were. And I hope to be able to do so without all this sort of backlash and unjustified backlash and really toxic behavior from fans. So I just wanted to bring that up to address it, and let's talk about the show itself. And again, all that aside, I watched the first 2 episodes of The Rings of Power, and I didn't like them that much. This won't be a very long review because frankly, I don't know if there's a lot to talk about for the first 2 episodes of The Rings of Power, but I'm going to try. Because I will say this, coming back from travels, I was a little tired. Obviously, I was a little bit jet lagged. So blame it on that if you want. I don't necessarily. I mean, a little bit, but I watched the shows at a pretty decent time. And so I'm not going to lie. I was dozing off a little bit in the first episode though. First episode was interesting because it introduced a lot of different characters. And at the end of the episode, I found myself saying, well, I don't really care that much about any of them. I thought the first, actually, 30 minutes I'll say 20 minutes of the first episode of The Rings of Power with Galadriel and Sauron and Morgoth, all that stuff I loved. I loved that stuff. And I thought, oh, I don't know what people are talking about. This stuff rules. This show rules. And then you start introducing all these different side plots of the Harfoots, is that what they're called? And this other subplot with this elf who's in love with this woman and protecting a village. And then this other subplot of Elrond and maybe forging the Rings of Power. And I'm like, what am I supposed to care about here? I don't really care about any of them. I don't even care that much about Galadriel. I think it's just cool that she's really this warrior figure in this show. And her action scenes were great, by the way. Like everyone has been saying, the cinematography and the budget and the CGI and the visual effects are beautiful. They're stunning. But I also have been on record to say many, many, many times, visual effects never make or break a show or movie. They can help and they can hurt. Absolutely. But to me, they are never the final deciding factor for how much I enjoy something. And it's very much the case here. Obviously, it helps to be looking at gorgeous scenery in Middle-earth again. Very much in line with Peter Jackson's vision of Middle-earth as well. But after about 30 minutes of the first episode, it became hard to appreciate that kind of stuff when I had no idea what I was supposed to be caring about in the story at all. I think the Galadriel stuff is cool in the first episode. I think Elrond is fine. I think that the Harfoot Hobbit people are not as interesting as I think they want it to be, like Frodo and Bilbo were in those 2 franchises, those 2 series at least, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And what was the other one? Oh, the elf guy protecting the people and falling in love with that woman. Just not interested at all. And so I get into episode 2, and people had been saying to me, well, episode 2 is a lot better. So I was like, okay, episode 2. It's better. It's not a lot better, though. I found very little to gravitate towards, honestly. Again, I think a lot of people have been saying that the Durin character and Elrond's relationship was fun, and I think that's true. I think that relationship was very fun and very fleshed out, and it was really interesting to see them interact. I think that subplot should have been the main plot of forging the Rings of Power, which is what I'm assuming is going to be happening with Elrond there and Durin. And aside from that, I mean, the whole Galadriel out at sea with this other person and fighting Sauron is kind of getting aimless to me. The orc coming out in that village, sure, fine, I guess, interesting. And that mysterious stranger guy, maybe it's Sauron, maybe it's Gandalf. I don't. The sad thing is, I don't care at this point. I might care in episode 3. And I'm really hoping that some of these side plots begin to converge, because I can't stand the fact that we're following 4 separate subplots, none of which I care about. And I'm going to go back to a show that I keep talking about over and over because I love the show, Stranger Things, where there are 4 separate subplots. But I care so deeply about each one of them because I care about the characters, I care about what's going on, and I am given the promise of the show that all those subplots are going to converge at the end. And they do, satisfyingly, beautifully at the end. And I'm not getting that vibe from this show yet. Now, it's first 2 episodes of a 9-episode show, and each episode is an hour. So this is 9 hours of television. I could be proven wrong. Absolutely. But I'm going to keep watching the show, obviously, because I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. And I don't generally give up on shows that are from existing IP that I love. Even if I don't like it. I watched every episode of What If, even though, I mean, those were like 20 minutes, but I didn't like What If. I don't know. So I'm going to keep going with the show. I'll probably finish it. It's an hour a week, I mean, it's an hour a week is a lot, but still, it's not like it's, 24 hours of content I have to watch every week. It's not like that. But I'm just here to tell you that I wasn't that happy about the first 2 episodes. Content-wise, obviously, we talked about toxic fandom and things like that, but all that aside, just purely based on what I saw, yeah, wasn't a big fan. So I'd be very curious to hear your guys' thoughts on the Rings of Power episodes 1 and 2. I don't know what people are thinking, and I'd be very curious to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking about the Rings of Power. All right, for this week, to wrap it up, we are going to be doing a combined ranking and theory of the week. So I'm going to be doing a theory. This is a theory, but it's going to be ranking the possibilities from least likely to most likely. And this is something, you've read the title of the clip or the title of the episode of the podcast, that I think is going to be answered fairly, well, no, I shouldn't say that, because the MCU shows have had this thing where they introduce a mystery and then don't answer it until the last episode, and then by that point it's just disappointing. So again, for what it's worth, I don't know if this theory is going to be addressed until like episode 8 of She-Hulk. We're talking about a lot of She-Hulk, by the way, in this episode, but that's fine. It's the big show that's out right now. And Rings of Power didn't enjoy it. So, we're talking about She-Hulk. But I wanted to talk about that little thing at the end of episode 3 where the Wrecking Crew come and they're looking for her blood. Now, as we know, obviously in this show, and also in The Incredible Hulk as well, Hulk blood is very dangerous. And it is also very powerful. Given to the right person, I think that and used in a sinister or usually sinister way, Hulk blood can be very powerful. And so I think it's very interesting to point out the fact that we don't know who wants her blood and what for. And I have 7 possibilities here. I think there are more. I've left a few off the list, but I think these are the 7 most likeliest possibilities for who would want She-Hulk's blood from least likely to most likely. And like I said, I think that some of the possibilities are a little bit more out there, but I do think there is an answer. So it's not like I'm saying, well, I think number 1 is the most likely, but I don't know. I think number 1 is the answer. I'm very confident in that. But again, I want to go from number 7 to number 1 and just kind of talk about why each of these different characters might want She-Hulk's blood. I can't believe that's a sentence, by the way, I'm saying. But here we are. It is what it is. So, possibilities of who might want She-Hulk's blood. Number 7, Daredevil. Why? I have no idea. But he's in the show, maybe for an extended period of time, or maybe just for episode 4. We'll find out soon. But because he's in the show, I have to include him, right? Like, it's a big deal. And I don't know why he'd want her blood, maybe to heal his eyesight or something, I don't know. But it's a possibility that I think exists, and therefore I will include that, I guess. So Daredevil is number 7. I don't think it's Daredevil, but he's in the show. Number 6 is his counterpart, which is, I think, a little bit more likely, though I don't know why, maybe to heal his eyesight, is Kingpin. I don't know why Hulk blood would heal Kingpin's eyesight after being shot in the face by Echo and Hawkeye, but maybe it's Kingpin. And if that's the case, then yeah, I think it's likely. I just don't know how that works. But they could explain it away like that, and I would be like, okay, I guess, sure, I buy that. So I think Kingpin is more likely to have a crew like the Wrecking Crew, and they're very similar to the Tracksuit Mafia, in how dumb they are. So I mean, again, for what that's worth, they were very, very similar to the Tracksuit Mafia and Hawkeye, and I could see Kingpin maybe even wanting to broker the blood for someone else who could be on this list. I don't know, but again, little unclear why he would want the blood. But I think it's at least more likely than Daredevil. Number 5 is Val. I think that with the Thunderbolts coming up and with Abomination's presumed inclusion in the Thunderbolts, maybe she would send out Baron Zemo to get the blood. I don't know, or U.S. agent. So I'm gonna just lump all those characters together. Potential Thunderbolts members, Yelena Belova, whoever else is there. I think it's possible that Val would want the blood for something, whether or not it's to, I don't know, heal somebody or make somebody else a Hulk or something like that. I don't know. And again, I'm also not precluding the fact that these characters on this list are working together. Like, for example, Valentina and Kingpin are working together, or Val and another member on this list are working together to get the blood. I'm not saying that that's not the case. I'm just saying that on their own, this is the list that I have so far. And I think that Val, while, a possibility, again, it's a little unclear to me why she would want the blood, but who knows? Might be. Number 4 is a possibility that a lot of people have been talking about, that frankly I'm not buying as much, but it's the Leader. And the only reason people bring the Leader up is because, in the comics, the Leader is a big Hulk villain, blah, 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 and we saw him in the Incredible Hulk get his powers. I'd like to remind everybody that was, that was 14 years ago that we last saw the Leader, and Tim Blake Nelson, who plays the Leader, I don't know, does he have any interest in coming back as the Leader? Maybe they could recast him like Ross Marquand as the Red Skull, maybe. Again, I'm just not quite buying that, not quite buying the fact that Tim Blake Nelson will want to come back as the Leader, or even if the Leader character even makes sense in this case. I don't know, maybe. And there were rumors that the Leader would be used later on in the MCU after the Incredible Hulk. And who knows? I mean, they brought Emil Blonsky back, after 13 years in Shang-Chi, so it's possible. I'm putting it higher on the list because he is a Hulk villain, I guess. Still not that convinced, though. But again, we'll see. So number 4 is the Leader. Number 3, most likely, is Titania. I think that Titania is obviously a character that's coming back, has been confirmed to be in at least episodes 5 and 6, I think, and probably throughout the rest of the series, although it could be a giant red herring and she might just disappear and die or go to prison after that, so who knows. But again, I think that there's just so little is known about Titania, but also so much is known of the fact that she is a big player in this series, that it's very possible that it's Titania who wants the blood for something. We don't know anything about her backstory. We don't know anything about who she is, what she wants. So again, it's very possible that she could be wanting the blood for something of her own. So we'll see about that. Number 2 is Emil Blonsky / Abomination. I think that this perhaps is more likely because he has dealt in things like Super Soldier Serums and Hulk before, and the Hulk blood, either A, he might think could cure him. I think if you look at this Hulk blood as a cure, it's possible because Smart Hulk was able to cure his arm, based on She-Hulk's blood. So I think that that's possible. Or you could look at it maybe as him looking at it as an enhancer, maybe, talking about like, and I don't know, enhancing his abilities or something like that. It's entirely possible that that's what's going on there. I think also the fact that Emil Blonsky's case is done, I don't think this is the last you're going to see from him. We talked about earlier in the podcast about how he has confirmed that he has a scene with Mark Ruffalo, and again, not only does that mean that Mark Ruffalo is returning probably, but also that Emil Blonsky is returning in the series. So whatever his role is going to end up being, I'm sure he's going to play a bigger role later on in the Thunderbolts, but he might want the blood for himself or maybe for someone else, because coming in at number 1, and I believe that this is the answer, this is the person who wants She-Hulk's blood, is Thunderbolt Ross. Now, I know, rest in peace, that William Hurt has passed away. And so, that actor, unless they CGI, but I don't think they will, is not returning to the MCU. However, the movie is still called The Thunderbolts. And I think it is still going to be operating under whatever his plan was, or whatever it was. And he did look very sickly. I think real life aside, he did look very sickly in Black Widow, and that was pointed out by Natasha, I think, a couple times. I think that we were heading towards the direction of a Red Hulk, potentially, and at the very least, Thunderbolt Ross being sort of the Nick Fury of the Thunderbolts, with Val, by his side, that kind of thing. I think now that, obviously, sadly, that William Hurt has passed on, that it will just be Val in charge of the Thunderbolts. But I think that if anybody wants the Hulk blood to cure himself or to help, his ailments and things like that, I think it would be Thunderbolt Ross. And I think this would lead very, very well into the Thunderbolts movie. I think that it would be interesting if Thunderbolt Ross, Emil Blonsky leaves prison and he's living his own peaceful life, and then Thunderbolt Ross comes up to him and says, hey, look, I need you back in commission. We need the Hulk blood. I need the Hulk blood. And, we kind of go from there. I think it's pretty clear that it's Thunderbolt Ross. Now, like I said, it could be any combination of these characters. For example, I wouldn't rule out the possibility that it's Thunderbolt Ross working with Val to hire Emil Blonsky to get the blood, and the leader is also trying to get the blood, and Titania is getting the blood. It could be all of them, for all I know. But I think that on their own, if you were going to ask me individual possibilities of who wants She-Hulk's blood, I think that Thunderbolt Ross, to me, is the most likeliest of the possibilities that I presented here on this list. So, from least likely to most likely, we have Daredevil, Kingpin, Val, the leader, Titania, Emil Blonsky, Abomination, and Thunderbolt Ross. Those are who I think most likely would be wanting to get She-Hulk's blood. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you guys think that those are possibilities, or if you guys think that there's another possibility that I forgot to mention, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I've seen some wild theories, like Maestro, the Hulk version, the old Hulk version who came back from the future into the past. Why? I don't know, but I've seen that, so it exists. And again, I think that I think it's likely it's one of these 7. But if it's not, I'm sure that there's going to be good story reason for that as well. It's going to be a whole nother year of speculation of, is it Kingpin? Is it not Kingpin? Is it Kang? Is it not Kang? Is it Mephisto? Is it not Mephisto? Frankly, I'm a little tired of that kind of stuff because, again, I just want to be happy with whatever the show gives us, but also it's fun to speculate. So, and I think that this show, more than any of the other shows, will have serious Thunderbolts implications, and I'm excited about that. And with that, guys, we are wrapping up today's episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. It was a very fun episode, and it's a little bit of a shorter episode, but again, not a ton happening. I'm sure next week's episode is going to be a doozy. It's going to be a long one because obviously we have D23 coming up, and I can't wait for that. So look forward to D23 coverage on the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to the Access Blockbusters Pod. Thank you guys so much for listening again. More to come, obviously, from the channel, and I can't wait for what's in store for the future. So thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you guys, or for listening, rather, and I will see you guys in the next one.